Jupiter, the planet of expansion, growth, and also wisdom, is going to station retrograde in the sign of Gemini. Hello, everyone. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Harley. I am a Filipina astrologer and also a tarot reader. And in case you're new here, I just want to let you know that in this channel, we talk about everything tarot, astrology, and also spirituality. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe you can consider subscribing on my channel, also leaving a like in this video if you would want to do that, and also leave a comment regarding this video as well, because that will greatly help me too. But anyway, so in this intro, you probably heard, and also probably through the title, you already saw that Jupiter, the planet of expansion, growth, and also wisdom, is going to station retrograde in the sign of Gemini. And this actually happens every year. So it happens mostly once a year. It's not really something new. But of course, it's going to affect us differently this year because it's in the sign of Gemini and there's going to be other transits involved as well in this particular one. So yeah, let's talk about it so you guys are guided on what you can expect for this upcoming retrograde. Now, first, I want to inform you guys that the rest of our year, actually for 2024, almost all of our outer planets are going to be in retrograde. So on October 9 at exactly 3:05 a.m. Philippine time, so again, I am a Filipina. I'm located in the Philippines. As far as I know, it's the other way around if you guys are located in the US. But yeah, on October 9, Jupiter will station retrograde in the sign of Gemini. It entered Gemini last May 26 of 2024, and it's going to stay there up until a year on June of 2025. And this retrograde is going to last up until February 4 of 2025, so it's going to last up until next year. So as I mentioned, this actually happens every year naman. It's nothing new, but of course, personally, it's going to affect us differently. So in this video, we're gonna put it chapter by chapter. First, let's talk about what Jupiter, Gemini, and retrograde means. After that, let's also talk about the history of Jupiter retrogrades in this particular degree of Gemini. And then we're also going to talk about what you can expect in this particular date for now, since we're going to look at the history for the upcoming Jupiter retrograde. And then also, I'm going to tell you guys how it will affect each of the rising signs for you guys to have an idea on where this retrograde is going to affect you personally. This Jupiter retrograde is happening on October 9 of 2024, and it's going to last up until February 4 of 2025. It's happening first in the 21st degree of Gemini. I'm going to show the chart here so you guys have an idea. And it will end right around the 19th degree naman of the sign of Gemini. So for us to be able to talk about this properly, first pag-usapan muna natin what does Jupiter, what does Gemini, and what does a retrograde mean. By the way, guys, look at my new pendant. It's so regal. It's a really big eagle labradorite piece. If you guys want to have stuff like this, I got this from Aries Crystals. I'm gonna put her link down below in the description, but I also have an affiliate code that you guys can use so that you can get 5% off. I'm also gonna put that in the description below. Syempre, who doesn't want a discount, right? So yeah, I just wanted to share because it's really pretty and I can't get enough of it. I almost wear it every day. So in case you guys want to have something like this to go to Aries Crystals. But okay, let's talk about the upcoming Jupiter in retrograde event. So Jupiter, if you guys are not familiar, it is the planet of expansion, growth, optimism, and also wisdom. It's also a representation of abundance and luck and where we can receive it. So wherever Jupiter is located in our charts, it shows us ideally where there's going to be a lot of expansion and growth that we will experience in our lives. Meanwhile, in mundane astrology, which is the astrology of like the events of the world, it shows us as well where there are potential room for growth and also a lot of like wisdom or opportunities of learning with regards to our events happening all over the world. Meanwhile, a Gemini naman is a mutable air sign. So mutable signs, they're typically at the middle of each season. And mutable signs, or double-bodied as we also call it in traditional Hellenistic astrology, they're very malleable, meaning you can shape it or it can shape itself accordingly on what it needs to do. That's why, di ba, merong like connotation that Geminis are double-faced. Kumbaga, aside from it being the twins, it is also because it's a mutable sign. And air signs, so that's Gemini, Libra, and also Aquarius, they're all about communication and also mentality. And lastly, Gemini is naturally ruled by the planet Mercury, the planet also of communication and mentality. This overall can also represent traveling, transportation, if pinagsama-sama natin. This can talk about communication, documents, agreements, messages, and Mercury sometimes also indicates merchants, salespeople. So we can talk about those things during this retrograde because again, Jupiter is stationing retrograde in Gemini. Now, another one that you guys should know is that Jupiter is in detriment in the sign of Gemini. So detriment is one of our essential dignities wherein it can show us how does a planet feel when it's in position in a certain sign. Does it feel empowered? Does it feel weak? Does it feel like it's in a foreign land, for example? And detriment happens when the planet is in its opposite side of yung home planet niya. And nagkataon that Jupiter is the natural ruler of Sagittarius, which is the opposite sign of Gemini. I'm gonna show a sample here for you guys to understand. That's why, since Jupiter is in its detriment, it feels as if it is in a foreign land. So it's really far away from home. Think of it na parang it's, an OFW who may have resources, but the resources sometimes are not enough, or parang it's weakened because of its different landscape. This can sometimes mean that Jupiter, instead of expansion and growth, can be a little bit arrogant, especially with regards to its capabilities. So sometimes it can show that it stretches itself a little bit too much because of that certain essence of arrogance. I'm not saying that if you have Jupiter in Gemini that you're arrogant. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the ability of the planet in the sign of Gemini can tend to be like that. This can also sometimes show, over-promising, overachieving, stretching yourself too thin. That's why if you have this in your natal chart, if you have Jupiter in Gemini in natal chart, sometimes you need to pace yourself because paminsan you may take too much on your plate to the point that it will swallow you eventually as well. So pace yourself. Anyway, lastly, what does a retrograde mean? So retrograde here on our planet, it shows us that a planet appears to be moving backwards or it stopped moving at all. That's why no matter what a planet is in retrograde, it often shows slowing down and also giving us an opportunity to rethink, to reanalyze, and re-strategize and replan certain things related to that planet in retrograde. So kapag pinagsama-sama natin to, what does this mean? So since Jupiter is expansion, growth, optimism, and wisdom, during the time of its retrograde, this can talk about a time wherein we need to slow down and really see what are the expansion happening in our lives, particularly where Gemini is located, and see if it's too much or maybe we're not taking advantage of it. So for us to really understand as well, or to have an idea on how this will affect us overall, we need to see or take a look back at what happened before at the time when Jupiter stationed retrograde in Gemini in this exact degree, because this is not the first time that it happened. So the last time that Jupiter stationed retrograde in the 21st degree of Gemini was around October 10 of 1941. O, diba? Ang tagal na. So first, let's talk about how it happened or how it unfolded here in our country, in the Philippines. So around the date of October 10, 1941, I'm looking at my cheat sheet, alright? It was around the time of Japanese invasion. So of course, I'm not saying na magkakaroon tayo ng Japanese invasion again. There's different transits happening around this Jupiter retrograde and also the one that's happening today. I'm just telling you guys what we experienced around that time because may possibility that some patterns may also repeat. Not the event, right? But the patterns. Remember that. Anyway, of course, marami namang nangyari around this particular date, especially during the time of the retrograde in Jupiter. So, hindi lang naman to one day. It's gonna expand for a few months. But around October 10, 1941, as I mentioned, it was before the Japanese invasion. Ang pinakatama nito actually is the Philippine Air Forces, which is funny because as I mentioned with you guys, Gemini sometimes can indicate transportation. And, flying is a form of transportation. So yeah, as far as I know, based on what I researched, the Philippine Air Forces were really one of like the biggest things or like the biggest issues that happened around that time. They were able to assist or they were getting ready for the Japanese bombers around this particular time. And also with regards to demographic, it is Clark, which is very near me, and also Nichols, that were heavily affected around this time, lalo na around December when in the US, what was activated around Jupiter retrograde in this time is actually before the bombings of the Allied forces in the Pearl Harbor. So it sort of connects in everything, kumbaga. And if we follow the chart based on the Philippine independence, because there are actually different birth charts of the Philippines, and this is what I'm following. I'm gonna show it with you guys. So as I mentioned, for me, right, just for me, this is the birth chart that I follow with regards to the birth chart of the Philippines. So as you can see here, Gemini, ayan, in the 10th house of Philippines, we have there the North Node and also Uranus, both in the 19th degree. And as I mentioned, this Jupiter retrograde will be hitting the 21st degree hanggang sa 19th degree at the end of its retrograde. So, we're very much affected by this. That's why in the history of this Jupiter retrograde, there were unexpected attacks, there were unexpected things, disruptive things that had happened because that's what Uranus represents and yun yung tatamaan in the chart of the Philippines. Meanwhile, the North Node naman represents where the energy is always increasing. So there's going to be a lot of like efforts as well that will come in there. Now again, I'm not saying that this is going to repeat and there's going to be war. What I'm actually thinking about this can be unexpected things happening publicly, especially in agreements and documents, and how much expansion has been happening around that time. Very funny as well because around this time, we have a lot of filings of COC. So baka magkaroon din ng effect with regards to that. So I'm not really that worried because I don't think that it's going to be another invasion. Because again, different transits around this time. But I do think that there's going to be something unexpected related to transportation, related to documents that are public in the Philippines as well. Na may, kumbaga, lalabas siya and we're going to see, is it expansive enough or is it breaking us too much? Or parang it's not enough for us to really expand. And as I mentioned, this also played a very big part in the chart of the United States. Actually, around this time naman in the US, there were a lot of like rethinking of the allies that US have. There were a lot of agreements with other countries, especially their forces around this time. So there's a possibility that it will repeat as well in their history. So with that being said, after looking at the past, what can we expect now? Because as I mentioned, the history will give us an idea what we can potentially expect with regards to this particular transit as well. So there is actually a very important configuration or transit happening together with this Jupiter in retrograde this 2024. And I'm going to show the chart here again. So this 2024, Jupiter will form a trine with the ruling planet of Gemini, Mercury, currently in the sign of Libra. So trine is actually a very positive aspect. The aspects that I'm talking about are the lines that you're seeing inside the circle, showing how the planets are currently communicating during this time. Kumbaga, parang we're going to see, are they in favor of one another or are they pissed off with one another? So trine, the way that you can see it is that it's a very harmonious aspect between these two planets. So Mercury, as I mentioned, is the ruling planet of Gemini, and it also represents transportation, communication, mentality, the things that are also associated with Gemini. So there's going to be a lot of focus there. That's why I also mentioned kanina that we can expect some things that we need to rethink and reanalyze related to public documents or maybe agreements that has been done by the government, for example. And also this can be applicable in our personal lives, which we're going to talk about more later. And at the same date as well, Venus, the planet of love, beauty, aesthetic, values, and harmony, is going to be trining Mars, the planet of action, aggression, and also conflict. And again, this is a very good harmonious aspect between these two planets. Because Venus is harmony, it's all about working with one another. And then Mars is also the action that we're putting to work with one another. So, despite the fact that the history of this Jupiter retrograde, is a little bit bloody, I don't think that 2024 transit or the 2024 retrograde is going to be the same because of this particular trine. However, we can also expect renegotiations or like really rethinking the actions that we have done with regards to enclosed spaces like our homes or maybe even private sectors as well that are related to our country. That's why I do think that this 2024 transit is a little bit more peaceful than before because of this transit. It may actually be related to collaborations and also peace talks that we need to rethink and reanalyze as well. Chiron is also opposing Mercury, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So there is a possibility that there's going to be talks about, the past wounds of us, and also really realizing how we have been healing others and also ourselves related to the expansion that is happening around us too. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure you guys are more concerned on how this is going to affect you personally instead of like the mundane aspect of it. So let's go into that part. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how this is going to affect us based on our rising signs. So if you guys didn't know yet, whenever we do predictive readings in astrology, what we look at is not your sun sign. What we look at is your rising sign. So if you guys don't know your rising sign yet, go to any of your choice of like astrological website, but my personal one is astro.com. Key in your birth details, including your birth time and birth city, tapos yung birth date mo, of course. And then look for the sign AC or ASC, whatever it is that you're using, and that is your ascendant sign. But anyway, let's talk about how this is going to affect you based on your rising sign, starting with the star of this event, which are the Gemini Risings. So for Gemini Risings, this is happening in your first house of yourself, your physicality, your attitude, your personality, and also your overall view in life. So I'm pretty sure that for a lot of you guys, Gemini Risings, there's been a lot of expansion happening around with you this year, be it good or bad. It really depends on your personal placements as well. But nevertheless, this Jupiter retrograde is going to allow you to slow down and really reanalyze if you're fighting more than what you can chew, especially in matters related to your self-improvement and also how you manage to show yourself in the outside world. So if you guys have been like in this journey of, trying to change the way that you look or trying to see as well how you want to present yourself to the world, my possibility that there's going to be like a slowing down of that, or you need to rethink and reanalyze as well, whether the approach that you're doing is correct or if it's coming from a different place instead of yourself. Since it is trining Libra, this Jupiter retrograde, my possibility as well that this has to do with like overall expansion happening within your partnerships in life. So that's also something that you should consider on whether the partnerships that you have, if they're too much or if they're not giving enough for you as well, particularly related to your personal development. Now for Cancer risings, this is happening in your 12th house of your mental health and also your spirituality and religion, yung relationship mo with it, and also how you deal with hardships. So for you guys, the expansion since May has been happening around how you take care of yourself mentally. And also there is a possibility that there is a lot of expansion happening in your spiritual life or spiritual beliefs. So this retrograde is going to allow you to rethink and reanalyze whether, again, you bit more than what you can chew with regards to the expansion of your mental health. Sometimes this can talk about you rethinking the efforts that you have been doing or really slowing down as well in what you have been trying to study regarding those matters. It can also be related in your spiritual life. So if, for example, there's a lot of expansion happening in your spiritual life and feeling mo it's a little bit too much, or like baka nagkakaroon ka na ng spiritual psychosis, which is bad, right? Don't do that. May possibility that, again, you will be forced to rethink that particular part of your life too. Now, after that, for Leo risings, this is happening in your 11th house of your social circles, your acquaintances, your network, and also your manifestations, your goals, whatever you call it, technically what you want in life. So for you guys, the expansion has been happening in your social life. So may possibility that this Jupiter retrograde will allow you to rethink whether are you socializing too much or whether there is enough growth happening in your social life as well. To some, this can indicate that you may step down if you guys have certain responsibilities in like your affiliations or memberships, or may possibility as well that around October up until February of next year, you can be a little bit more private with regards to like what you have been learning socially too. Now, to some naman for you guys, this can also be related to your manifestations and goals in life. Sometimes this can indicate that there is a time for you to rethink or reanalyze that what you have been attracting in your life, if it's something good for you or bad for you. Because sometimes the growth of Jupiter can be cancerous, lalo na if in your birth chart you have some sort of like challenging placements. So paminsan this can talk about overachieving and you realizing, for example, that overachievement is not really the key on what you're trying to attain or what your goal is. So there is a time for you to pace yourself as well. So take it slowly in your goals. Okay. Now for Virgo risings, this is happening in your 10th house of your career and also your public image. So for you guys, the expansion may have been happening overall in your career trajectory or maybe in the industry that you belong in. So may possibility that there is a chance for you to slow down in certain career progressions. It doesn't mean that if you're aiming for promotion, na hindi na siya mangyayari. This may actually mean that it can be expedited, but you need to rethink the responsibilities that comes with it and whether it's something that you really want to do or mamaya pala it's just good on paper. Another one too is there is a possibility as well that the expansion and growth happening around your industry is also sort of going to slow down. That may also affect you. On another part, to those who are actually like public figures or does something publicly, there's also slowing down probably in like what you're doing as well in the public. If you are an influential figure, this doesn't mean naman na mawawala yung influence mo. Sometimes this can just show that there may be some projects that you need to rethink and reanalyze on whether it's still applicable in the wisdom that you have, or is it in line with your values? Lalo na this Jupiter retrograde is trining Venus, which represents our personal values as well. The next one is for Libra Risings. For you guys, this is happening in your 9th house of everything foreign. So foreign people, foreign culture, migrating abroad, or even just traveling abroad. And also your 9th house of higher education, higher knowledge, and higher wisdom. So for you guys, there are some expansion happening already with regards to everything like foreign. So maybe if you guys are working with foreign people, this can show that, there's some expansion or growth happening in your opportunities. However, again, there may be too much responsibilities that comes with it, or you're being asked on whether are you overachieving something or are you stretching yourself too thin to the point that it's not sustainable enough for you now, whatever is happening during the time that Jupiter entered the sign of Gemini. So you sort of have to rethink and reanalyze on how you're going to make things sustainable. Or maybe there's also a possibility that if you guys are migrating abroad, that there can be some delays regarding to the plans related to that. Again, the keyword is delay. Okay, so I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. Maybe because, it's growing fast or parang it's happening so fast for you to really catch up talaga on are you ready for the expansion or the possibilities of the expansion that comes with it. Also, if you guys are still in school, particularly in higher education, so this is college, master's, PhD, for example, there's also a possibility of like delay in growth or like delay in something that you're trying to learn. If you guys are expecting or expected to be graduating around this time, it doesn't mean naman na hindi matutuloy. Sometimes this can indicate that, there's a delay that may come with it because you're being taught a lesson, for example, that whether you're ready for the next step or ready for your education or not yet. Now, for Scorpio risings, this is happening in your 8th house of your shared and also your complicated finances. So for you guys, it is a time for you to rethink and also reanalyze the expansion and growth and wisdom that is applicable in your shared and complicated finances. And what we mean by shared and complicated finances can be investments, assets, debts, insurance, loans, inheritance. So anything that you own but you also co-share with other people. So there is a possibility of slowing down in your investments. It doesn't mean naman na wala ka na makukuha out of those investments. It only means that if you're trying to expand something related to that you may be asked to rethink and also pace yourself. I would also personally take this with a grain of salt, all right? I would personally not recommend like trying to do something big related to like businesses that you co-own with other people, or like maybe even like big purchase that can also serve as an investment, because Jupiter in retrograde is better with regards to rethinking and reanalyze your next steps instead of like trying to eat something that you cannot finish. For my fellow Sagittarius risings, this is happening in our 7th house of our personal and committed relationships. So for you guys, there can be a slowing down or like pacing yourself with regards to your personal committed relationships. So this can be your marriage, your long-term relationship, ka-live-in partner ninyo. Also, best friends are counted in there because they're technically committed relationships that you have. So there is a possibility of like rethinking the growth that has been happening with regards to those relationships. For those who are married, may possibility na there's a lot of new things that you guys are experiencing with your other partner to the point na kailangan ninyo mag-slow down because, you need to take your time and really analyze kung sustainable pa ba to. There's also a very big possibility that the expansion or the delay in expansion may happen around around your spouses or your partners instead sa sarili mo. So example, maybe your partner is waiting for a promotion, tapos affected ka by it, so you guys need to rethink your next step with regards to your marriage. There's also a possibility that the rethinking and reanalyzing of growth may happen around your best friends and then you are affected by it. So for example, maybe there's like a big life decision that your best friend is making and you are involved in that. So you may also need to rethink and reanalyze your involvement in that particular area of their lives. Water break. Okay, next for our Capricorn Rising. So for you guys, this is happening in your sixth house of your physical health and also your everyday work, your service, and your co-working dynamics. So for you guys, this is a rethinking and reanalyzing of whether there's something growing with regards to how you take care of yourself physically. So don't get me wrong, this is not a medical advice, alright, by no means. It may actually mean that you have been doing something positive or optimistic with regards to your health, but you need to see whether it's sustainable or if it's enough for a longer time. So if you guys have new medications or nag-iba kayo ng lifestyle and a more positive one, it doesn't mean that that's gonna end na. It only means that there is an opportunity for you to really see on how long can you keep this up or how is the expansion relating as well in other aspects of your life. If not, may possibility that this may happen around the areas of, your working dynamics and your everyday service, pati na rin yung co-worker relationship mo. So if you guys had some recent promotion and you're handling different departments or like a new massive project, you're being taught and you need to analyze as well whether the responsibilities that come with it is enough for you or if it's too much for you. So may possibility that the growth happening around your everyday work as well needs to be analyzed and you need to rethink your next steps related to it, whether it's already sustainable or not. Now, for our Aquarius Risings, this is happening in your fifth house of enjoyment, pleasure, dating, romance, and also your children. Now, for you guys, this can talk about like certain opportunities in dating and romance that you need to rethink and reanalyze on whether it is a part of your expansion or is it just a distraction for you? So I'm not gonna lie, for some of you guys, this can talk about, letting go of certain relationships or like romantic endeavors that does not really apply or like contribute to the growth that is currently happening for you, particularly in feeling the enjoyment and the pleasures of life. Now, to those who work in the creative industry or have some creative projects, there's also a possibility of slowing down or really needing to pace yourself with regards to the project that you have. It doesn't mean, man, that those projects are going to be gone. It only means that there are some steps that you need to reanalyze and rethink on whether it's still sustainable for you to produce. Now, to some who are parents, tapos they are Aquarius Risings, there's also a possibility for you guys to rethink and reanalyze the growth that has been happening with regards to you and your parenthood manners, and also related to your children on whether how you can support them properly as well on the growth happening around them. Now, for Pisces Risings, this Jupiter retrograde, guys, is happening in your fourth house of home, family, and also your living situation. So for you guys, this is all about rethinking and reanalyzing the growth happening around your family dynamics. To some of you guys, there's a possibility that there has been a lot of responsibilities related to your family and how you have been helping your family for the longest time. So you need to analyze on whether is it something still sustainable for you or are you giving too much or not giving enough related to your family. Now, may possibility then, if for example, there is a literal growth happening in your family, meaning new additional members, you may also need to rethink and pace yourself and really take a rest as well with regards to how you have been keeping up with it. For some of you guys, this can talk about expansion and growth in your living situation naman. So if, for example, you have been, renovating your house, making it bigger, or maybe if you have been, committed in buying a lot, buying a house as well for yourself, it doesn't mean naman na you won't continue doing that. What it means is that maybe you need to reanalyze how you have been sustaining this growth and also whether it's something that's really good for you or is it something that, you are taking responsibility of, but in reality, you're biting more than what you can chew. For Aries Risings, this is happening in your third house of your communication, your mentality, your siblings, and also your everyday routine and productivity and everything local as well. So you guys may need to rethink and reanalyze the growth in certain communicative projects if you guys are in that industry. So if you guys have, written and verbal projects, for example, you may need to reanalyze whether it's something sustainable for you or whether the projects have been helping you or maybe it's more responsibilities instead. Now, there's also also a possibility that this may have to do, with everyday content, if that's something that you do. So you may need to reanalyze on whether what you're doing is something sustainable for you as well, or is it a little bit toxic for you? Now, another possibility is really rethinking to the expansion of your relationship with your siblings. So this doesn't mean naman na if you're helping them, you don't need to help them anymore. Sometimes this can mean that you need to reanalyze your responsibilities related to them, or maybe, for example, the bonding that's happening between all of you with your siblings is not really something that's helping on your growth too. So it's more of a time of slowing down in sibling relationship. Now, to some, this can talk about reanalyzing the everyday habits and productive things that you're also doing, kasi it may have been good, it may have been optimistic. However, may possibility na it's too much for you as well, to the point that you're not enjoying it anymore. Now, lastly, for Taurus risings, this is happening around your second house of your personal finances, your source of income, and also your spending habits. So for you guys, this is a time to really analyze the growth related to your money. So may possibility na for the past few months, there's a lot of opportunities, in expanding your sources of income, or maybe related to your job. However, you need to really see whether that expansion is enough for you, or if it's too much, more than what you can handle. So sometimes kasi when there is too much opportunities, hindi natin alam kung saan natin dapat ilagay properly yung money natin. Maybe that's something that you need to rethink and also pace yourself. This can also talk about you needing to analyze and re-strategize your spending habits, because maybe it's borderline overconsumption already, because Jupiter can sometimes indicate that. You just really need to reanalyze and re-strategize your spending habits too, for the next period of like this Jupiter retrograde. Anyway, that's it for all of the signs and also what we can expect generally. If you guys have any idea on how this is going to affect you, or if you have planets as well in the sign of Gemini, let me know. Comment down below, or if you guys have some clarifications as well on the things that I have discussed. I'm excited to see some questions related to this, if you guys have something. And also, don't forget to subscribe in my channel, like, and also leave a comment if you can. Anyway, that's it, you guys, for Jupiter in retrograde in Gemini. I'll see you again next time in the next video. Bye!